ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ। ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਗੁਰੂ ਪਿਆਰੀ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, this question of how to react to death, this will be a situation that all of us are going to face at some point in life. Loved ones around us, things that we see in the media, or something worldwide like might be happening today. We take the word death and we automatically were conditioned to relate it to fear. You think of a horror movie. A horror movie can only be horrifying or terrorizing if somebody is going to die, or there's the threat to die in a very maybe scary, terrifying, gory way maybe. But the things that I want to discuss with you today is how a Gursikh, spiritually, temporally, through the teachings of Guru Sahib, how should a Sikh react to death? Whether it's them thinking of death, of their own death, or if it's reacting to the death of somebody else around them. Let's break this down into two parts. First part is the death of yourself. When you think about death, of your own death, how should you react to that? When somebody puts the threat of dying to you, or when your life is at stake, whether it be because of another person or an epidemic, or it could be, some other form of that. The other part is when somebody around you dies. How should you perceive that? How should you look at that? How do you stabilize yourself? How do you ground yourself in those times? So, Pyareo, Sache Pacha, for the first part of your own fear of death, fear of dying, let's discuss that very briefly. Maharaj says, Chinta taki kijiye jo anhoni hoye. That whatever is going to happen in your life, some things are definite, they definitely will happen. Some things are not definite, they're not 100%. Something that will happen for sure is you leaving this body, or you leaving this life. That's going to happen, so why worry about something that's going to be happening anyways? And the other thing with that is chinta taki kijiye jo anhoni hoye, the things that may not happen, such as you may be getting a car, you may be getting your promotion, you getting married, or living the life that you wanted to live. Those are some things which either some things you need to detach from or you need to work upon. Some things that are not going to go with you at the end of this life, why worry about them? Because something that's very temporary, it's like you go into a hotel room and you fall in love with the bed, you fall in love with the walls, you fall in love with the staff. That's great, but it's a hotel, you're a guest, you're not going to be staying there forever. That's why use the time while you have, enjoy your rest and leave. But what if you stayed in that hotel and you didn't sleep in your room, you didn't do any of the things that you intended to do while you were there in that hotel? Then that would be a waste. That's why when you're in this life, worry about the things that we are here in this life to do. Maybe in the end, that will be a celebration. We either, as Gursikhs, we look at somebody's life and we look at the things that they've done, the things that they've achieved. Maybe it's the service in life that they've done for the world, for humanity. Maybe it's their loving nature towards everybody around them. Maybe it's the sacrifices that they made for the greater of the world. Maybe it's the naam that they recited. Maybe it's the devotion that they had for God, the loving nature of them. All of these things, we look at them and we say, wow, this person's life is great. Har har sant jana ka jeevan. We categorize them to be living the lives of saints. But then if we look at the other part, somebody that doesn't, somebody that's always intoxicated in alcohol and greed and lust, they think about only themselves and they die in vain and pain. We look at them and we say, whether they may be our loved ones, and we think that that person didn't really achieve the best in the life that they could. So their life may not be remembered as much. When you think about your own life and you're living in it, death is something that never scares a Gursikh. It's not something that is a topic of fear. I just want to give a small example because just yesterday, the Shahidi Divas of Bhai Sobeig Singh and Bhai Sabha Singh just passed. The father and son who sacrificed their lives. I discussed on it just briefly yesterday as well. Bhai Sobeig Singh, I just want to share a few words of his and a few words of his son, Bhai Sabha Singh. Bhai Sobeig Singh, he was a government official under Zakaria Khan, who was the governor at the time. Sobeig Singh, from the Pind, the village Jambar, he was fully devoted to Gursikhi, fully devoted to the Khalsa Panth. He loved his Panth. He knew he was working in life for something greater. At that time, there was a price for Gursikhs' heads. People were saying that if you see a Gursikh, we'll offer them 500 gold coins, 1,000 gold coins, and so on like that. Sobeig Singh was a learnt scholar in Persian, in Arabic, in Hindi, in Farsi, in many languages. He was great in government value. He was a great businessman. He used to be allotted contracts around the Lahore area. And he used to go and do all of this work. He was making great amounts of money. He also used to do farming with his own family in his house. He would go and work as a messenger between the governor and the Sikhs that were living in the jungles. He would go to the Gursikhs, the Nahang Singhs that were living in the jungles, and he would act as a spy for the Gursikhs, not for the governor. His loyalty, his allegiance was always with the Khalsa Panth. When he would go to the Gursikhs and he would share, these are the plans, that this is what the governor is trying to attack you with, and this and forth, he would go back. The Gursikhs loved him for this. They respected him for this. They knew he would never back away because of the way he lived his life. There was a time when his son Shahbaz Singh was learning from a Maulvi. He was learning Arabic. This Maulvi, or the teacher that was teaching him Arabic, he saw that he's a very bright student. He's brilliant. And like you might guess, a father seeing another boy that's very bright, very talented, he wishes for him to become his son-in-law. He says to him, "O Shahbaz, why don't you convert to Islam? If you convert, then I'll get my daughter married to you. You get married to my daughter, I'll give you everything that you want." And Shahbaz Singh says that I'd rather die. I'd rather die than leave Sikhi. He says, but if you do this, then you'll have to get killed. He says to the Maulvi that, do you think that even after they kill us, after somebody kills me, do you think I'm not going to die? Even if I convert to Islam, do you think I'm going to become immortal and not never die ever? No, death is still going to come to me then. The beautiful words that we read in Gurbani, Joban jande na dara. If I have true love for my Guru, if my love for my Paramatma exists, then my youth can deteriorate away. It can go away. It means nothing to me. A lot of times we're very proud of our youth. I look like this, my skin is tight, I don't have wrinkles, my hair is black, I'm tall, I'm fit, I'm trying to lighten my skin tone, I'm trying to go through these diets. We're doing so many different ways and methods. Pull out our blackheads, you put on these creams and lotions, moisturize your hands and your face, doing so many things to preserve the youthfulness of ourselves. We take our youthfulness for granted. Ask those elders that are at the very peak of life, the very end of life. They know they're not going to live for another 30 years. It's impossible because they might be 80 years old, they might be 90 years old. Ask them their viewpoint on life. It might be completely different. They're always thinking about what I did when I was in my youth time, back in the day, and they might have a completely more sincere look on life. They might not be drenched in vices, but they don't have the energy. They're looking towards the youth and they're saying, use this time valuably. Take value in it. Use it for something positive. But the youth might be saying that no, drugs, alcohol, partying, being loud, that's all it's about. Diving deep within, doing something righteous for humanity, no, forget that. We don't have time for that. But Pyareo, Sahbaz Singh says that who cares if my youthfulness goes away if I die now? Because the death is going to come to me anyways. Juan horny hoy, something that's going to happen anyways. But my love for my Guru, that is true. That's going to live forever. And keep this in mind. I'm going to touch on it, explain this entire thing. Is when the love for the Guru is true, you begin to experience immortality. You, through your spiritual development, you begin to rise above the body and the mind. Fear becomes to you like you taking off your clothes. If I was to take off this shirt and somebody poked holes in it, it wouldn't hurt me. Because, of course, you know that I'm not the shirt, just like you're not your clothes. In the same way, Gursikhs get this realization through loving Akal Purkh, through this loving spiritual development with God. They step away from their own egos. They step away from their own homme. They merge into something much greater than that, a greater purpose in life. Death does not do them fear. Somebody comes up to Baba Ajit Singh, Baba Jujar Singh, the two sons, the elder sons of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. They're facing going into battle. It's not fear of death, no. It's excitement. It's like marriage. Just like a young bride is excited to go and get married. That excitement, that thrill on her wedding day, when she wakes up in the morning, she opens her blinds. She runs down the stairs. She goes and gets ready. She gets dressed. She's looking forward to it. In the same way, these Gursikhs look forward to it. When we look at the life of Bhai Taru Singh Ji, this is during the same time of Sahbaz Singh and Sobeig Singh. Bhai Taru Singh, a 25-year-old, their mother plays a great role, says that I want your Sikhi, I want this love of yours to live with your breath and with your hair. If your body goes, your body dies, and there was no purpose, there was no love filled inside of that body, there was no ecstasy of Naam filled inside of that, then living that life was useless. Sikhi kissa swasa naal nibh jave. This 25-year-old Bhai Taru Singh, a great Gursikh during that time, his khopri is taken off, his scalp is removed. Bhai Sobeig Singh, that government official, is the person that goes and takes the shoes of Bhai Taru Singh and takes them to Zakaria Khan and beats him on his head until the disease or the problem that was inside of his body where he wasn't able to urinate, that goes out, and because of that he dies. The Gursikhs during that time, death meant nothing to them. It was like a play, it was something that they looked forward to. And Gursikhs today, during this day, they live in that same experience. you begin to rise into this. Bhai Sobeig Singh and Bhai Shahbaz Singh, they're both told upon, they're snitched upon. The Maulvi goes and tells the government officials that Shahbaz Singh is somebody that he slandered Muhammad. He slandered Muhammad's daughter Fatima. So they were both arrested. They both were confronted. I'm cutting the long story short. They said, you have two options, either convert to Islam or die. The threat in this life, pyare, is always going to be given with death. What more can someone say to you? Someone says that I'll kill you because if you don't do this. Your life will be over if you don't do this. That fear of death is not something that affects Gursikhs. This is how a Gursikh is meant to react. They look upon the face of death and they say, this death is going to be completely painless for us. We read these lines in Gurbani. Kya jana kiv marenge, kaisa marna hoye. Jekar sahib manana visre ta sehla marna hoye. We don't know when and how we're going to die. We have no idea. But there's one thing that is the truth. That is that if we are constantly remembering God with love, constantly reciting God's name, living our life drenched in that bliss, then the truth is that when we do die, we don't know how we're going to die, when we're going to die, but when we do die, if we're in that state, it's going to be a very blissful and very peaceful and very intuitive death. Sehla marna hoye. It's not going to be painful. Instead, it's going to be blissful, something we look forward to. So when someone threatens you with death, don't think of it as fear. The fear comes when you attach yourself to something in this life. The attachment of something that you do not want to let go of, that is what's causing your pain. To a loved one, to your household, to your own life, to a goal that you may have made that you said, I wanted to do this and this, but now I can't. I won't be able to live long enough to achieve that. I won't be able to live long enough to see my grandchildren get old and married. But these are not attachments that a Gursikh has. Gursikhs are living their life at a much higher spiritual and righteous level. That's not to say this is something different than somebody that's oppressing you and doing this. You still stand up and fight for justice, like Sobeig Singh, Shahbaz Singh. They're standing up. They did everything. They're standing up for the justice of the Khalsa. Sobeig Singh is going and telling, and he's working for the Khalsa Panth. The Gursikhs in the jungles, they're doing ardas for Sobeig Singh and Bhai Taru Singh and Bhai Shahbaz Singh. When they're both put upon wheels, they're both grinded, or you can say they're both pressed in these big wheels on these terkadis. They're pressed alive to put fear inside of them. But look what they're doing. They're yelling as loud as they can. Akal hi akal, gurbar akal. They're saying Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru. That is what's on their tongue. That's the true love that they have. Bhai Taru Singh ji, their scalp is off, but for days and days on end, they're reciting Japji Sahib da Paath. They're saying Waheguru, Waheguru. Bhai Mani Singh ji, this is Sikh history. This is your history. Their body is being cut to bits. And if somebody that's watching this video is from a different faith, Hussein has arrows pierced inside of his body, and he looks up and he's still reading the first surah of the Quran. If we look at Jesus, Jesus is being beat. He is dragging the cross all the way to the top of the hill. And he's still saying a prayer to God. He's still saying that, oh God, have mercy upon them, for they do not know. In that true love of God, true love of Paramatma. If you look at Draupadi, she had no faith left in the world anymore. She looked at her husbands, she looked at her teacher, she looked at everybody else in the world, and she cried out to God, and God protected her. This is for everyone in this life. This is the way to rise above it. They're being grinded on these wheels. when they're brought down, their bones are broken. They're separated. And what history writes is that spears are made hot and they're poked into the skin of this father and son. They're both in such a state where they're fainting, blood is coming out of them. What they did with Sobeig Singh is they put people around him to try to convince him. There's lots of peer pressure used. This is how people pressure you into things. Lots of peer pressure. Hindus that had converted to Islam. This is not, remember, I'm not talking about the faith, this is about tyranny. And these people are trying to put words into his mouth, into his mind, saying that, look, we were like this, but look, to save your life, you have so many things to do. Even the governor, Zakaria Khan, he said to the son that, look, you're so young. Your father has lived his life. He's become older now. You are young. You need to enjoy a woman. You need to enjoy the luxuries of life. Look, I'll give you land. I'll make you a king of this place. He said again, do you think even if I do that, I'm never going to die? I'm going to die. He's completely detached. Because he was fainting, his head nodded like this because he was fainting. And everyone took that to believe that this younger son has accepted to give in. When the news was given to the father prayed to God. He wouldn't believe it. And when he said that, bring me in front of my son, he looked at his son, he wiped his forehead, and he looked into the son's eyes, and he asked, is this true that you've given in? And the son, he became conscious, and he said, Sir jave ta jave, mera Sikhi sidq na jave. This is what true love is, that as a Gursikh, death does never faze you. I can give you more and more examples, different examples of men, women, children, elders, through Sikh history, throughout world history. Death is not something that fears them. That's how a Sikh should react to their own death. Looking forward to it as a marriage, as love, looking beyond it, looking towards the emergence of Akal Purkh. And you can only do that now. Start that now. Keep this in mind. The world will tell you to be fearful of death. Don't remember death. Don't think about it. I say to my parents all the time, oh, well, whatever, who cares about that, because when we're dead, it's not gonna matter. And everyone's like, oh, pota, and oh, son, don't talk about these types of things. They're very bad things. What if, don't talk about my own family, my own wife might say that. But Pyare, this is the reality. When you remember death, the world is fearing death. It means the end. But a Gursikh looks upon it as a beautiful thing. It's not saying that, oh, always be down and dark and dreadful and be like, oh, we're going to die and whatever, man. It's not about that kind of stuff. No, the exact opposite of that, in fact, is you look at that as a wonderful thing. You look at that as a way to detach from the world, to put things into perspective. What is worth it and what is not? What is valuable? What should I give importance to in life? And when you remember death, your own death, the end, you remember what has value, you align your goals, and you remember what is beyond death. Automatically, by remembering death, if you are somebody of faith, if you do it through true love, that death, that remembrance of death, will remind you of your love for God. And that is what it means to be constantly be living in the remembrance of God, is by remembering death. Pehla maran kabool jeevan ki chad aas. For a Gursikh, as a Sikh, you're not going to death and be like, oh my God, that's a fearful thing. Why? Because you're already fearful. I was watching this movie about these warriors that are attacking each other. And the person that's the commander of the army, before they go and attack each other, you know how they go and they give that spiel and everybody raises their swords, and he says, yeah, we're going to go and fight. He says these things which I really liked. He said that you are fighting for this army. Death does not fear you. You do not fear death. Why is that? Today, because you're not going into this battle to die, because you're already dead. And I was like, that's what Gursikhi is. That's what the Khalsa Panth is. It means this, that we are already dead to the world, to attachments, to vices, temporally and spiritually. And yet we're living in that true bliss. Now, touching along this, I want to touch upon the second thing, which is how should you react to somebody else's death? Whether it's a loved one in the family, whether it's something that you hear in the news. I want to share this shabad with you in Gurbani. You have to have a higher perspective or a higher thinking to be able to understand what this shabad means, what these lines mean. Kaun mua, re kaun mua, Brahm Gyani mil karo bichara. They say, Pavane mein pavan samaya, Jyoti mein jyot ral jaya, Mati mati hoi ek, Rovan har ki kavan tek. Let me translate that. They say that the air merged into the air. They say water merged with water. They say light merged with light. The heat merged with the heat. The dirt, the dust, it mixed back into the dust of the world. So the question is, who died? Who really died? That's the question. If everything of your five elements just merged back into the world where it came from, where it was created, even if you look at the laws of physics, matter is not created or destroyed, I'm just using it for this example. You're created of five elements, your physical body. But like I said, of course you're not your body, and you should realize this by now if you're following this channel. Is you're not this body, so your elements of this body of yours emerges back here into this world. So the question is, who dies? Who passes away? And the answer, Kaun mua re kaun mua, Brahm Gyani mil karo bichara. O enlightened beings, O people with this true understanding, that realize what the game of God is, let's sit down and let's discuss this, because the reality is, nobody dies. The light of Akal Purkh, the light, the consciousness, the true consciousness, your awareness merges back into the awareness of God, because the ego is dispelled if you recite God's name. The dirt, the body, the blood, the bones, the flesh, your mucus in your body, what is that going to do? That's all going to merge back. What is your body? It's skin, it's bones, it's flesh, and all of this, aside, that's your physical body, but aside from that, your mind, let's say your intellect, your mentality, all of that is built inside of ego. That gets removed. You merge that with God, and your body itself, this is just to simplify it, and your body, your physical body, merges back with the elements of this world. So the question is, who passes away? I want to relate this to somebody who might be dealing with the passing of a loved one in their family or someone around them. Keep in mind that death is not the end. We think of that to be the end. No, it's not. Instead, that physical body has come to an end. Those five elements have come to an end. Yes, you may not be able to physically see them. Now their soul is on a journey. Or should I say their non-physical body. That's on a journey. It's on a journey to be judged. It's on a journey to put placement on what they've done in life, which is going to be redirected towards coming back into another life, more chances, doing great things in life, or merging with God. Somebody that's merged with God now, completely one with God now, their five elements disperse and they merge one with God. Omnipresent God. Now, if this is something that you are trying to deal with, that's a passing of a loved one, what are they doing? Your job is to sit, just like Guru Amar Das Ji says, don't cry after it. That's not the reaction of a Gursikh. You're always in the states of Chardi Kala. You deal with it as if they got married. Yes, it's tough for the father to send the daughter off into her marriage house, to her in-laws. But the father knows it's for the best, and the father knows it's something that he's wanted, and it's what his daughter wants. That's why prior to the marriage, the father might be really excited for the wedding, and the daughter is excited for the wedding. Just that moment of separation seems difficult. In the same way, you do ardas, you do kirtan. Guru Amar Das Ji says, when I pass away, Guru Amar Das Ji said, the third Guru, don't cry, do kirtan. Be happy, be excited, and use that moment to reflect upon your own life and what am I doing in life that I can live righteously. You know, the Gurdwara is attended in only just a few times in life, either somebody's wedding or when there's a funeral. By people that don't regularly go to the Gurdwara, it's either somebody's wedding or it's a funeral. At a wedding, most of the time nobody's thinking of God. If it's a non-Gursikh wedding, as in like it's not following the spiritual principles properly. But if in a funeral, everybody's thinking, oh, this person was a great person in life, and we just want to pray for them. That's the beauty that death has in your life, to redirect your thoughts. Use that opportunity, do that ardas for a loved one. That's how a Gursikh, what the maryada is, the code of conduct to follow after somebody else when somebody passes away. We'll discuss that in a different video, maybe in our Sanskar series. But here, we're discussing the reaction of love. Merge with God. Use all of this emotion that you have to dive deep within yourself, to direct your life, to say that this is truthful in life, this is not. Once you're able to see the difference of this is false, this is true, you've gained wisdom. I don't want this. This is valuable. Let me chase after that. I recognize that my loved ones will pass away. And instead, in fact, be so prepared now that when that moment comes, you're ready for it. It might sound weird. Me and a couple of Gursikhs, we used to sit down and we used to think about these things when we were young. And we used to talk about that, okay, let's imagine, or it might sound weird to you, and I don't want you guys to take this out of context. Let's say a loved one passes away in your family, let's say your grandparents, or your mom, or your brother, or father. Let's sit with that and let's take that in. What is your reaction to that? That allowed us to dive deeper within ourselves. So, Pyareo, these are things that death allows you to remember as a Gursikh. Pehla maran kabu jivan ki shadas. We're not afraid of this body going away. Instead, we accept it with happiness, with true bliss, and we're moving forward in life and taking every breath that's inside of going in and out of this body to its best potential, to its best ability. So that's why we recite Waheguru, Waheguru. Death is always in front of us, it's always hanging on top of our head, and we recite Waheguru, 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 accepting it, moving forward with it, and living in the will of God. So inniyam bentiyam parwan karniya. While talking, I've made many mistakes. Let's remove these anxieties, remove these thoughts from our mind, and follow the path of love. Waheguru ji ka khalsa, Waheguru ji ki fateh.